Fire hydrants are those short, stumpy iron things that you see along the side of the street, right near the curb. They're sometimes called fire plugs. They can be different sizes and shapes, but they usually look like cylinders with different valves and places to connect. Most fire hydrants are painted a bright color, like bright red or yellow, so firefighters can find them quickly in an emergency. Local laws in some places say that fire hydrants have to be painted a certain color based on how much water they can supply at a certain pressure. This helps firefighters figure out which fire hydrant will work best in a given situation. Firefighters used to physically pump water from a source or use brigade buckets to extinguish fires before the invention of the fire hydrant. They would form a line, though, stretching from the fire to the water supply source. Each firefighter would fill a bucket in turn before passing it on to the next person in line. This procedure was repeated several times until the fire was finally extinguished. This required significant time and effort, but it was well worth it in the end. More property was destroyed as a result of the time it took to put out the fires. Fire hydrants did not appear until much later. The true inventor of the fire hydrant is actually unknown. A fire destroyed the patents for the fire hydrants in Philadelphia. A number of hypotheses have been proposed in an attempt to explain the patent's mysterious disappearance. Several witnesses claim to have received burns as a result of the fire that broke out inside the building. Some claim they vanished during a fight, while others claim that they were carried away by a flood. A popular theory holds that the missing patents were extinguished in a fire that swept through the building where they'd been stored for safekeeping. Because there are no particularly clear or widely accepted records, it is widely assumed that Frederick Graff invented the fire hydrant. Mr. Frederick Graff Sr., chief engineer of the Philadelphia Waterworks, was the first to think of post or pillar fire hydrants around the year 1801. Graff was born in the year 1775. He worked as a carpenter prior to joining the Philadelphia Waterworks. He developed the first fire hydrant concept while still in his 20s. As a result, we can credit him with the invention of the fire hydrant. He received a lot of praise for his wet barrel design for fire hydrants. It was made up of a faucet with a valve attached to the very top. On the other hand, there's no other evidence to support Graff's claim that he invented the fire hydrant. Because of these significant advances and innovations that followed the introduction of the first fire hydrant, the identity of the person who actually invented the first fire hydrant, according to the patents on paper, has officially been lost to history. It's important to know, though, all subsequent fire hydrant designs were inspired by the first fire hydrants, making them an important source of inspiration. Initially, wooden fire hydrants were used. Wooden pipes were used to transport water through the Philadelphia Waterworks, and the design of the fire hydrants used today bears little resemblance to the ones that were created by Frederick Graff. Firefighters usually have to use a special pentagonal wrench to remove the valve covers on the fire hydrant. Once the covers are removed, firefighters can attach hoses to the valves. They then open a valve that allows the water to flow through the hydrant and into the hoses. Fire hydrants can typically supply a large volume of water. This water is pumped through the hose to the fire truck, where it's pressurized and divided into several streams to supply water to multiple fire hoses at one time. The water used in fire hydrants is the same water that's used in homes, offices, schools, and other places. However, the pressure is not more than 50 to 80 pounds per square inch. This pressure is not enough to put out a fire. So that's where the pumps are used on the fire trucks. And the pumps increase the pressure, and firefighters hold hoses to bore water on the fires. In states that are normally cold and the weather can be freezing, this can all be a very big problem. When it's extremely cold, water freezes, which makes it impossible to put out fires because the ice blocks the hydrant system. When water freezes, it gets bigger, which could cause the fire hydrant to crack. This would make things worse if there was a fire. In very cold states, dry barrel fire hydrants are used. When this type of fire hydrant is not in use, water doesn't stay in the top part. The water flow is controlled by a valve that's buried deep. And then through a long rod, this valve is connected to the stem nut. There is always water in the barrel of a wet fire hydrant, though. The fire engine gets water under pressure once that valve is finally opened. It's estimated that there's over 10 million hydrants in the United States, with new ones being added on a daily basis as municipalities continue to grow. It's also important to note that privately owned fire hydrants must be inspected and serviced on a regular basis. It's critical to hire a specialized contractor who's skilled in testing, installation, and maintenance of these devices. These are interesting things with JC.